Welcome everybody to the Career Exploration Night panel. We're gonna give just a minute or so to let people filter in to make sure that we have our full crowd before we start, but you are in the one for computer systems engineering and electrical engineering. Okay, we'll give it just another couple seconds. Seems like the trickle of people coming into the room is slowing down a little bit, but once again, this is the Career Exploration Night panel on computer systems engineering and electrical engineering. We should be starting in just a second here. All righty, well, it's 4:32, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Like I said, welcome. This is the Career Exploration Night panel on computer systems engineering and electrical engineering. I am Sean Rudnick, one of the Sky advisors. I would like to thank all our panelists, all of whom are proud Sun Devils, for taking their time out of their evening to be on our computer systems engineering and electrical engineering Career Exploration Night panel. This is going to be a 1 hour panel and it is being recorded. I will start things off with 3 prepared questions directed to all of our panelists. Panelists, I will use your name so you know that the question is directed towards you. If you'd like to pass on answering a question, please feel free to say pass or add or agree with someone else's statement. Students in attendance, please know that attendance list will be given to your ASU 101 instructors. All right, and you can ask questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Okay, you can type in career-related questions for our panelists. You can ask your own questions, or you can utilize some of the questions that you had in your workbook. If there are a lot of similar questions, they will be grouped together as one question, so we can get as many of your questions in as we can. If your question is directed at a specific panelist, we are going to please ask that you include their name in your question so we direct it at the right person. Feel free to type in your questions now, and we will get to them in just a little bit. All right, panelists, please take yourself off mute and turn your camera on so we can begin. Okay. Our first initial question, or our first question is going to be for all panelists to help the student audience know a bit about you as they formulate their questions. Please give your 1-minute professional tell me about yourself pitch. Let's start with Brian.
Hi, I'm Brian Paul. So right now I'm working at General Dynamics. I'm a senior engineering manager for our space avionics groups, and we build space hardware like GPS receivers and comms equipment for a number of customers like NASA and commercial customers. Prior to that, I've been at GD for about 12 years. I was at a small engineering firm before that. And I was in the Air Force prior to that. My tie to ASU, I did my master's and PhD in electrical engineering at ASU.
Thank you, Brian. Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Budd. I graduated 1994, computer systems engineering. Started working in telephony. I'm working on voice over IP systems. Did that for about 9 years, then switched over to SSDs. Worked on mainly rugged SSDs for military and other industrial type environments. And then now I'm working on enterprise SSDs with Western Digital. And I've been anywhere from individual contributor as a firmware engineer up through a director of engineering.
All right, thank you, Chris. Paul?
Thanks, Sean. Hi, everyone. My name is Paul Kaiser. I'm an Arizona native and a Sun Devil. I got my bachelor's degree in computer systems engineering in the early 1990s. I'm a vice president of research and development for a company called Aviva. I've worked here for almost 32 years now, and we make software for industrial environments for the design, simulation, construction, operation, and analysis of industrial locations like an oil refinery, a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility, or a power generation facility.
Thank you, Paul. Catherine?
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Chamberlain. I was born and raised in Phoenix, and I got my bachelor's in electrical engineering in 2020, and then I just graduated with master's from ASU in electrical engineering this summer in 2022. I'm currently an electronics engineer at NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory out in Pasadena, California. And I did 2 years worth of internships there as a digital electronics engineer, where I designed firmware for a telescope that will be a follow-up to the James Webb Telescope that just launched on Christmas Day of last year. And then I'm currently working on a proposal plan for the next flagship telescope that would follow up the James Webb Telescope as well.
Thank you, Catherine. Eleanor?
Hi, I'm Eleanor Luz. I graduated ASU in 2010 with my bachelor's in CSC. I was a software engineer for General Dynamics for a few years, then Honeywell, and then I went to an e-commerce company, was there for a little while being a software engineer. I got promoted to a manager, and last year I moved over to VMware Carbon Black, and so now I work in cybersecurity in the cybersecurity division, and we develop endpoint security software.
Awesome. Thank you, Eleanor. Students, as you can see, we have a really well-rounded group of individuals with a lot of experience. So please make sure you're putting those questions in the Q&A. We're going to have 2 more initial questions we ask, and then we're going to get to your questions from our great panel. All right, question number 2. Once again, this is for all panelists. It seems like every company needs CSE and electrical engineers. Is that true? And do you see a hiring trend? Let's go back the other way and start with Eleanor.
For me, yes. Being able to code and being able to know what kind of works with hardware as well is very important. Sometimes you'll be able to see like how the code can impact the hardware or vice versa, and being able to go back and forth and understand the relationship between those two can be a really big opportunity.
Thank you, Eleanor. Catherine, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Every company needs electrical engineers, including the aerospace industry, which I think when I was a freshman, I certainly thought it was exclusive to aerospace engineers. But electrical engineers make everything work, and it's especially high demand for embedded engineers like I am. So that's JPL is hiring like crazy, especially for electrical engineers.
Awesome. Thank you. Paul, how have you seen this working in your field?
Mostly we're hiring software developers, but we'll hire from any engineering discipline in order to do that. For CSEs and electricals, where we find a lot of value is working on code on software that works very close to the manufacturing facility. You often encounter unusual hardware in different industrial environments. So having an appreciation for the computer systems, the hardware side of that is really helpful.
Thank you very much. Chris, how's this working in your neck of the woods?
So definitely computer systems engineering is what I tend to look for when I'm hiring somebody. They, as others have mentioned, they have that knowledge bridge between the two areas, the computer science, strictly computer science, and strictly electrical. It's definitely useful because there's so many things that are embedded these days. As far as hiring trends, that was the other part of your question. I think that specifically in our field right now, the NAND flash is going through a cyclical downturn right now. So we're kind of in a hiring freeze at the moment. But in general, I think the the entire industry is doing well, right? And there's obviously people hiring. I see job opportunities all the time for CSEs and EEs. So I think it's good overall.
Thank you. And last but not least, Brian, how have you seen this trend in your field, in your job?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. We have electrical engineering woven out through everything. So radiation effects engineers we take and build out of good solid EE backgrounds. We have digital designers for the boards, FPGA and ASIC, RF, signal processing, all subdisciplines of electrical engineering. And I'm, of course, extremely biased as an electrical engineer, but I think we make the best coders, and especially when it's deeply embedded like space. You want to be able to write code that can actually very close to the copper, like what Paul was saying. You can't write at a very abstract level for these types of applications. So you need that knowledge of the circuit design to write good software. So it permeates everything we do. And with the commercial space explosion, we're seeing a big demand of electrical engineers that can also have space experience, because there are some unique challenges there.
Thank you all for your responses. The last of the initial questions before we move on to the questions from the students. This question, once again, is for all panelists. Please tell us one piece of career advice or career observation you'd like to ensure our students hear. Let's go back the other way and start with Brian.
So I guess a common thing I see with very bright people coming in is there seems to be this focus and this intent and need to be the smartest, try to prove that you're the smartest person in the room. And that usually doesn't make for a productive, collaborative teammate. And everything we do involves teams. You're never doing engineering in a vacuum, or at least it's very rare. And I would challenge any of the panelists here if they have a dissenting opinion. And so really, I always tell people, prioritize being the one that gets stuff done, not trying to prove that you're the smartest person in the room. And that's going to serve you really well.
Thank you, Brian. Chris, let's move on to you. What piece of advice might you have for the students?
So I would say you've only got 4 years or so at ASU. Take advantage of them. Definitely get involved, learn different things, try different things. It's such a short amount of time, and it goes by so quickly. So I think that getting involved in different clubs is always a good thing, and different competitions and things like that. It's always a good.
Yeah. One of the things we often tell students is you all are taking relatively similar classes. And one of the things that really sets you apart are those other things you get out of the ASU experience.
Correct.
Paul, what career advice might you have for the students here today?
I would highly encourage you all to look for internship opportunities, especially between your last 2 years at ASU before you finish your degree. Career fair just happened. It's kind of the career fair season right now. Lots of companies, including mine, are there looking for potential intern candidates. That's an internship for the summer is like a long interview. The employer's interviewing you and you're interviewing them. You might find out that they're not a good fit for you, or you might find out that you need a new major or something like that. But I think it's the quickest way to a job after school is to find that match during summer. And if it works out well, if you like them and they like you, they're going to offer you a chance to come back full time when you graduate.
Thank you, Paul. Catherine, a piece of advice you might have for our students?
Yeah, I would say explore. And that means explore on campus and kind of follow your passions, whether that be exclusively in the engineering school or outside, and explore at internship and with everything. A lot of your success is networking, but a lot of your success. I was in the hip hop team at ASU, and that has been one of like the grounding factors that has defined kind of my the start of my career. And I never would have guessed that like hip hop all things were then what stuck out about me. But I was just doing what I was passionate about, and I was able to reflect that. So just follow what you like and take advantage of meeting every type of possible person, whether they're an engineer, a scientist, or an artist. Everyone's going to help you down the line somehow.
And Eleanor?
I would say practice interviewing with different people, with a lot of the resources that are ASU, just because sometimes it's really helpful there was one project I did during one of my internships where it was just a random Perl script. And that random task actually got me a job. And for me, it was very weird. So being able to, whatever you do in all of your projects, make sure that's visible and you can speak to them too, because that will definitely help your chances of landing, either an internship or another job. And, whatever opportunities and whatever things you do and you enjoy, you never know what kind of job it can get you. You may have different ideas and different, plans, but sometimes they're just random opportunities that happen and just turns out really well for you.
Okay, thank you, Eleanor. All right, those are our first three initial questions. Leah, what do we have from the Q&A section?
Sean, the Q&A is very active. We'll start with a combination. Several students have asked about whether or not they should go to grad school. And they've also asked, I think we can lump this together with whether they should do any types of minors or certificates. And this is to all panelists. What are your thoughts on this?
So, Paul, we haven't started with you yet. What are your thoughts on that?
The second one first about grad school or professional school, I would say it's not necessary. So again, I work for a software company. We're looking for software developers, and if you have a master's in computer science or something like that, some engineering discipline, we'll probably pay you more upon graduation. But after about 3 or 4 years, that all seems to kind of level out. So it's certainly not a necessary component, but it could give you a leg up. When it comes to minors and things like that, I tend to think from the software perspective. So software is everywhere. I happen to work in the world of industrial automation, software for industrial uses, but software is used in many disciplines. So if you want to write software, try and find a way to write software in a field with which you have some passion, right? For which you have some passion. And maybe that's what you minor in: software in music, software in art, software in finance. There's all kinds of opportunities out there. If I was going to pick a minor, that's how I would do it.
Awesome. Chris?
So I never went on to go beyond my bachelor's. I don't think it's really hurt me. I agree with what Paul said, that after a while, experience kind of takes over. So clearly I don't have a doctorate or anything like that, but I don't necessarily want one either. I think that I'm happy. I don't want to necessarily be doing all the research and things like that. Long term, I want to be doing the hands-on today, solving today's problems, getting products out, talking to customers, those type of things. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Great job. Catherine?
Yeah, so I have a minor. I got a minor in undergrad. It was digital culture, which was offered through the Arts, Media, and Engineering School, which is a combo of Fulton and Herberger Design Institute. I did that for fun. It meant nothing. I just liked the classes. And Chris and I were speaking earlier. I interviewed with Chris when I was a sophomore in college. And I mean, this was a long time ago, but he does remember that I was learning a specific coding language that I only learned in my minor. So again, is it pertaining to electrical engineering? No, but was it interesting and memorable? Yes. So that is for what you will. I had a lot of fun in my classes, and I met a lot of fun people that were outside of engineering. And then I do have a master's, and I got my master's at ASU. I did device theory, so I did nothing related to like my specialization at that I was getting for my degree. And I do not really anything with the research that I did at ASU and my job currently. I just really liked my master's thesis, and I loved like the advisor, and I had a great time doing grad school. I'm really happy I did it right after my undergrad degree, because I just got to keep the ball rolling. And now that I'm in early career hire, I find that I would not be able to perform a job without my master's. It's not that I'm doing anything where I learn the skills. It's just that I feel like I'm a much better independent employee, and I'm a much better individual contributor, because I kind of have that experience of working on my own and kind of struggling on my own in my own research from my master's degree. And so that's where I think that the master's was really helpful, was because I can just translate those like independent skills into my current job.
So that development of skills can happen in many different ways. And I love that message. Brian? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of the other panelists. I will say in just my experience in our field, so it really depends. Like signal processing, we tend to favor a master's degree only because we don't really scratch the surface on an undergrad, and really we want you to be able to contribute day one versus climbing a steep learning curve, which I think the individuals want as well. Where then maybe like a hardware engineer, it's we're able to plug them in much more readily at a bachelor's level. So I think it really depends on the specialization a lot of times in my experience. And just being blunt, I guess my personal opinion when I'm hiring, minors don't play too big a factor. If it's something specialized like they're minoring in aerospace with a double E background, that's certainly attractive because it's in line with our field. But largely, it's not. It doesn't usually play a big factor, I guess.
All right. Thank you, Brian. And Eleanor?
I also agree. Sometimes masters may not always, I never got my master's after I got my bachelor's, but it doesn't seem to like really have been, doesn't seem to have been a huge effect for my career, really. However, I know for some people, if they want to work at a specific company and they want to do a specific job, I'll definitely recommend looking at that website, look at the careers, look at those job descriptions and see if a lot of those require master's or doctorate degrees, because sometimes you never know what they're looking for. And then after you're done graduating, you want to apply for that job. You're like, oh, well, they're asking for a master's or a specific minor or something. That can always be a good helpful reference. And also as a warning, for if you look for a software engineer, there is a lot of descriptions depending on which company you go to what that is. There's different kinds of code, different skills and stuff. So if you can kind of have an idea of what kind of, look 2 or 3 companies and see what maybe might be something if it's something that you really want to do, or if it's something that you will really help you in that to land that job later.
Definitely doing a lot of research to figure out what kind of job you're interested in, what the requirements are, what you like as an individual, what you want to do. Leah, do we have another question?
Well, I'm grouping a few questions together once again. We have a large amount of questions about internships. So we'll add that to predominantly, can you be a freshman and get an internship? What types of things do you look for in internships? And what can they do additionally to set themselves apart to get that internship?
So, Brian, I'll start at the top with you. What are some of those things that you're looking for? How early would you hire somebody in an internship? What do they need in order to be prepared for an internship with your company in your field?
So we tend to go junior and senior, and it's really because we don't want to bring someone in and put you to work on busy work or things that you're not going to get an experience of what it's actually like to work here, and you're not going to get an experience that you're actually necessarily going to learn and grow from. So we really want to have a few labs under your belt, a few specialized classes where we can give you real work. And really, I try to press my managers that if you're going to bring an intern in, we got a project lined up and they're going to be working on real hardware so that they get that real experience, because it's a recruitment tool for us. And it's also a way of building our talent pipeline. And I think Paul or Chris made the point earlier that you get that foothold in the company and they trust you and they see the value and they're going to ask you to come back. You don't always get that, I think, in the freshman, sophomore level, at least in my experience. That's why we tend to focus on more the junior, senior.
Thank you, Brian. Paul, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, similar to Brian, we're not looking for slave labor. Like I said before, this is an interview. We're interviewing you, you're interviewing us. So we tend to stay away from people earlier in their academic careers, freshmen. It's unusual, it's not unheard of, but we're usually looking for someone who's a rising senior in between their junior and senior year, because we're looking for our next full-time employees. So if we have a good summer with you, we can make you an offer as you're leaving that summer. Then the pressure's off. You go finish your senior year, you don't have to look for a job. When you're done in May, you come back and start working here. So yeah, normally wait until later in your academic career, but it's not impossible.
Thank you. Chris, your perspective on this?
So I definitely agree with Paul and Brian, of course. Currently, Western Digital, that's what we're looking for, is specifically juniors. However, at my previous company, it was a lot smaller. And so, as Catherine mentioned, she interviewed when she was a sophomore. So, and she was actually interviewing to take the spot of a freshman that we had. So we did have a freshman intern who was actually contributing and doing real work, not just doing busy work. So it's very, very unusual. So I wouldn't be disappointed if you didn't get something like that. But clearly there are smaller companies out there that can do things like that are maybe a little bit different. So you just gotta look, participate in the handshake, or whatever the new program's called now. Get in those interviews, go to those career fairs, and see what's out there.
Catherine, that's a nice segue to you. What are your thoughts on this matter?
I have a lot of thoughts. So I got my first internship after my sophomore year at NASA Johnson Space Center, and I worked there for a year. And my design set during my internship launched and went to the International Space Station. So I think most internships, you're looking at being a very big contributor. It's not maybe that stereotype where you're getting copied like that exists in engineering. And then I also got an internship at General Exhibition Systems in Scottsdale as a sophomore as well. And so I would say, like, don't ever let anything stop you. And I worked on like proposal work there, and I did 2 internships there as a test engineer and as an RF engineer. So I've had like a whole slew of different experiences. And then I went on to Boeing Company as a junior. And then I got an internship at my current agency, NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory,
Catherine,
as a senior, and I started with them for as early as possible. Oh, sorry. I'll just say get started as early as possible. I gotta try digital engineering, RF engineering, systems engineering, analog engineering, test engineering, all at internships, all during my undergraduate career. So I would just say, don't ever be afraid to apply. And again, I got all my internships mostly just for chatting with people. So you just never know what's going to happen.
And Eleanor, internships in your field, when do you usually bring them in? What are you looking for?
So I'm kind of looking for what you've done, what your skills you have. We know that you won't have, someone who has had 5 years of experience or anything, but at least, something that you can do on your resume that you've done, some projects. I prefer really looking at projects because I rather see like, what you've done, what you've accomplished, how have you worked with the team, and also how you present yourself as well. Sometimes the personality may not work all the time as well with the other team or something. But I know my company we've hired freshmen who are interns. So it does happen. I know I randomly got asked from one of my classes as a freshman to be an intern for Medtronic. It just kind of randomly happened. My team won something, and I guess I made a good impression on the TA with all of my work. But after that, I ended up going to a different company for General Dynamics for my internships for the next couple of years, and got a full-time job after that. But it's really about networking too. Talk to different people, make different connections, and see if there's any opportunities out there. There's nothing wrong with asking anyone if they have any internships. Worst thing that can say no, but you never know if there is something that could open up for you.
Thank you for that. And all your answers kind of queued something up for me. So I'm going to ask a follow-up to this. You all kind of mentioned that sometimes it takes a little while to build up that engineering knowledge. Is there a specific soft skill that you would all say that they might want to work on while they're kind of gaining that engineering experience that you would like to see in an interview or from an intern? And it's like, Catherine, you said, yep.
Couldn't find a mouse. Yeah, I would say technical communication. So even just being able to talk through your resume in a way that makes sense and communicates your ideas in a really strong way is very helpful. And being able to speak just in interviews so you don't always sound nervous. And especially at NASA, that ability to present, that's a really big skill that they value. So always just working on like those speaking skills, the technical communication, always communicating in simple ways and having concise ideas.
Thank you. Anybody else have a skill set that's a favorite of theirs they like to see from an intern?
Being able to present can be a big thing, where may not necessarily be present PowerPoint presentations, but being able to present your work or being able to discuss and like show your screen and like say work through a problem or something. Being able to do that, it can be a big help. Just make sure that everyone is clear and understands what the problem is, and you're able to talk through it.
Awesome, thank you. Chris, Paul, Brian, any of y'all?
Absolutely. I'm going to agree with Catherine. Communication is key. I know your English class might not be your favorite class. It definitely was not my favorite class. But communication, the ability to document your code is way more important than the code that you write, because you're going to be gone. You're going to be promoted. You're going to be moving on, something else. So that code is going to live and someone's going to have to take care of it. And if the documentation isn't good, it's really, really hard to debug. So communication is key.
Thank you, Chris. Paul or Brian, anything else to add on that?
I'm not sure this is exactly answering the question, but I'm gonna say something here anyways.
Right.
One of the hot topics here around where I work is the return to office, dynamic work, flexible work hours, remote work, whatever you want to call it. And I can say this because some of you might know my son. He's a student at ASU, a computer information system student there. And he got an internship last summer with a company I won't name. And they said, you can come in 1 day a week on Mondays, or you can just work remotely the whole time. And he said, Dad, I'm just going to work remotely. And I said, no, you're not. Go in, meet these people in person, get to know them, establish a sense of team, have those conversations. Everybody here is talking about the importance of communication. Do it in person when you can, because I'm that guy. I'm the guy you're trying to get a job from. And at the end of summer, if there's you and some other student, and you've come in and I know you and I've met you and we've had lunch together, and this other person, maybe I've seen him on a video call or something, it's easy to call him up and say, sorry, I don't have a position for you. But you get to know somebody. Spend that time. Don't be afraid to go in person and meet people.
Power of showing up. It's amazing. Paul or Brian, sorry.
I knew that was going to happen. I was waiting for it. Curse of two first names, but no, I agree with all the other panelists. Communication, and I'll add maybe a specific thing that, again, going back to, I think there's always that sense that it's a competition, and that you couldn't be more wrong, because again, we're not looking for people that beat out their peers. We're looking at the people that can work with their peers, and so really work on engineering to a consensus, not just my answer is right, because you're going to be working in a team, and also asking for help. If you go off and spin your wheels for a week and come back and say, I didn't figure out the answer, I'll be much more upset than if you raise that, hey, I don't quite understand what you're asking me for the first day. So always try to communicate and ask for help, and work towards that consensus with your other interns. Great
answers, everybody. Leah, how are we doing on the Q&A room? Anything
Plenty
new?
of questions here. First of all, Paul, thank you. By hitting on what you discussed, that answered one of the questions about whether they should work from home or work in the office. So you did catch another question there. This one's a little different, so we'll ask this one. Do you frequently work with engineers in other fields and take on interdisciplinary roles?
All right, so Eleanor, let's start with you.
We do talk to different engineers, but mostly, like for our field, we talk to a lot of security engineers who have that specialized cybersecurity background or certification that may have done. We sometimes don't particularly do their work, if that's what you're talking about or what you're saying. But we work with them. We know our product and what the software does and how that will incorporate with any of the new vulnerabilities or malware or something that they've been able to research and find and narrow down. And we work very closely with them to make sure that it all works. And sometimes, we trying to think what other companies, but that's the main one next to mine.
Awesome. Paul, do you have any other fields that you tend to work with that?
Most of our customers in the industrial world are engineers. Very often that's who's using our software. So we see, chemical engineers associated with pharmaceutical world, electrical engineers associated with power generation. So lots of different engineering fields. And we hire a lot of different engineers as well because they understand what our customers are trying to do with our software. And then, getting out of engineering, I have to work with portfolio and product management people all the time to understand, what products they think our customers want and how we can go about building them the best way. So tons of crossover for me in my career.
Chris, Brian, Catherine, crossover with your careers?
Sure. As the director of engineering for my last company, I worked with the computer systems engineers, of course, and the electrical engineers and mechanical engineers. So for me, it was kind of fun because I got to participate in those other areas that as a strictly computer systems engineer, I wouldn't have interacted with. So, and I get to review some of their work. Clearly, I'm not an expert, but at least I can see it from maybe a higher system level point of view. So that was.
Does that ever change the way you kind of see some of your stuff interacting with other fields?
Absolutely. Yeah. So someone on the panel mentioned it earlier that definitely the computer systems engineer has to have knowledge of the hardware, right? Of what the electrical engineer is trying to do, right? And so you have to come together as a team and solve the same problem together.
Catherine, Brian?
I'm constantly working with not engineers, but scientists. I am an owner of a printed circuit board for my projects. And so with circuit boards, you have to do all these environmental testing parameters. So I have to work with mechanical engineers. I have to design a chassis to obtain the printed circuit board. So I have to work with a lot of different engineers, reliability engineers to perform analysis. And then I also work with a lot of scientists and physicists because they steer the requirements that then I, as the electrical engineer, work towards. So there's a lot of collaboration there.
Awesome. And Brian?
Yes,
You have
I
a
think
lot of
similar
interaction
to,
with others?
yeah, absolutely. Very similar to Catherine, since I think we both work in the space or around there. So we have a lot of challenges. We build fully custom hardware. We even do custom ASIC development inside of our solutions. So RF, DSP, the digital board designers, power supply designers, mechanical engineering, because thermal is always an issue with space, and survival, shock and vibe. Then you have to work closely with radiation effects and parts engineers to make sure that what you design will actually survive more than a minute out in orbit. And so there's a lot of different abilities and engineering and otherwise outside of even the business that we have to work through to make sure that we have a system overall that meets all the requirements. So really, yeah, it's hard for sometimes people coming like myself. I was at a smaller company and kind of being told to stay in your swim lane and focus on your thing because there's experts in these 10 other fields you need to consult. You can't do it all yourself. And so that was kind of a hard lesson for me as to how interdisciplinary the space design can be.
Thank you very much. Leah?
Sorry, I lost my cursor. Sean and I are both academic advisors, and I saw this question roll by. How much math do you use on a daily basis? Because they were asking, do we really use the high amount of math that we are required to take? So would you guys like to take on the question of how much math you use?
I see Brian smiling a lot there, so let's start with you, Brian.
It's funny, this question comes up, I feel like, in every one of these forums, and students are hoping we say, oh, and I never use it. I got news for you. Sorry, I use it every day. I use even the most, I think, senior level grad classes, we use every day. So sorry if that bursts anyone's bubble. That's at least my experience.
Chris, how's it come into your day-to-day?
So I have a math minor. I didn't mention that earlier, but I'm a math geek. I like doing math. I actually, after this, I have a math club I'm going to for adults. So I'm that much of a geek. But as far as everyday work, I would say definitely, I'm not like doing calculus or anything like that. But definitely some of those concepts, those principles of, things have to build on each other. There's a logical progression that you've got to take. And I've even heard from others, so not just Brian there, but others that, like in the game industry, they do an awful lot of like linear algebra and things like that. So definitely there's still use for the math in anything you do. Math is everywhere. So just get used to it.
Catherine, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, I do a lot of math, especially when I was doing devices and RF. It's a lot of math. Less so now with what I do at JPL, just because that's the nature of kind of my tool flow and being in a proposal phase. But the math will come back very quickly.
Paul, Eleanor, anything to add?
With me, so the software we make spans quite a breadth of the industrial engineering environment, from design of a manufacturing facility to simulation of that facility, operations, and analytics. So in simulation and analytics, yeah, tons of math. It comes up a lot, but other places not so much. It depends on what aspect of the software you're working on. It can.
Awesome. And Eleanor, anything to add on to the end of that?
It kind of depends on like where you go for your position. For my position, we can do a lot of calculations sometimes for testing something, make sure everything works. For some of that, we do use some math. For some, it kind of depends on the job you get, but for me, I think it's a really good idea to just, it's math. You'll get through it. Do study groups. You'll be fine. Yeah, I haven't. We haven't like needed a whole lot in my career. But I did make an algorithm a few times and all kinds of things like that for my career. But it can show up, and it's good to be at least prepared and that you already have it and you know it, rather than show up and not be able to do it.
So it sounds like from all your answers that it can show up in that day-to-day. Definitely that thought process, that critical thinking you get from math is extremely important and follows you all throughout your career. Leah, on the Q&A front from the students, do we have a next question?
Yes, we do. A lot of questions about how to differentiate themselves, particularly if you could address outside projects to differentiate yourself as a student.
So if you can think about maybe a project you've done or one that you would like to see from an intern. Paul, let's start with you.
Thanks. I was going to volunteer, Sean, because I feel passionate about this
one. I can see it in your face.
That's, in my opinion, that's kind of the beauty if you're interested in a software career, because you can carry a project that you did around on your phone. And if you're a mechanical engineer, you can't trebuchet through the career fair and talk. Right. You can take pictures or something, but especially when I'm speaking to grad students, computer science or computer systems engineering. No offense, but they start to sound all the same. They take the same classes with the same professors and they solve the same problems using the same solutions. And so having something you did on your own, maybe as part of an internship or part of a club or some other activity outside of your normal coursework, really sets you apart. And those things tend to be something that you're passionate about. You did it for fun. Nobody gave you a grade or $1 for it. You just did it because it was cool. And that's when your eyes light up and you start talking about your love for software. And those are the things that stand out for me when I'm talking to students. So find that project somehow, some way, something you can do to demonstrate your skills that separates you from your fellow students.
Yeah, and definitely I think one of the things I loved in your answer there was hitting on that human connection piece with another person. I'm sure if someone told Chris they're in math club as well, he'd be like, yeah, go math club. All right. Anybody else want to add on to this question?
For me, the big thing is just be yourself. No one else is like you. Show us like things you've done, talk about different things you're interested in, what things you want to do. You never know, that can always be really important. It was something that, I get reminded constantly by my boss, just to be myself at my job, and don't worry about a whole lot of everyone else. You know what you're doing, go ahead and just do it, and just be yourself.
Definitely. People that are looking to hire you, they're going to have to work with you. They want to know what kind of person you are and the type of person they're hiring, if they're going to get along with you. Anybody else have anything to add on that question?
I had one thing. I don't really look for projects. Just me, again, my personal style. I don't look at them as something that would stand out as what the project is. But I do use it as a foothold for the conversation to start digging in. And I'm really looking for: did you actually work on this project, or were you with a bunch of other students and your name was tacked onto it? And I really want to look for and hear, yeah, we tried this, it didn't work. And if I don't hear some of those things that actually sound like you worked through an engineering process, it's a lot of red flags. And if it's all, oh no, it was great and we pulled together and everything worked, then I know you really didn't work on it. And so I really use it as a conversational foothold more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. That's a theme we've seen come up a couple of times. Being able to explain and communicate what you do to other people is extremely important, so that they can know what's going on. Anybody else have anything to that?
Yeah, I have one more thought. I kind of touched on it earlier, but I was on a hip hop team early in my graduate career, and that was what made me stand out. Nothing about my technical resume. So just follow what you like. And then when I mentioned that Chris remembered my minor, it's not my technical stuff that he remembered. It was what I liked and what I had fun talking about. So just follow your passions and you'll find your path.
Awesome. All right, Leah, it looks like we got about 13 more minutes. Do we have a good list of questions still out there?
We certainly do. We'll give a fun one. Caden wants to know if you ever get to travel for your careers.
We see this a lot. As advisors, we're constantly like, I want to do this for the lifestyle. How true is that? Who wants to jump in on that?
I want to. Oh, can I go first? Go ahead, Catherine.
I was just going to say, NASA employees, we're invited to all the launches, so I'm going to go to a launch pretty soon. So that's going to be fun, and that's the good thing.
I was going to say, I just got back a little over a week ago from India. So I went Phoenix to London, to Cambridge to London, to Hyderabad to Bangalore to London, back to Phoenix. It's exhausting. It's not as glamorous as it might sound. From the time I left my hotel room in Bangalore to go to the airport until I landed in Phoenix was 31 hours, and it was still Friday. It was the same day. So it can be really, really, really exhausting. Sometimes it's fun if you go to something like a conference, but like I said, I work for a company that does industrial software, and they don't build manufacturing plants in nice places like San Francisco or New York City. So I've spent a lot of time in Kalamazoo, Michigan, White City, Grand Rapids, Battle Creek, Gary, Indiana. The Lee's Inn in Kalamazoo still sends me Christmas cards, and I haven't been there in like 15 years. So sometimes it's good, and sometimes maybe it's not so cool.
Brian, Chris, Eleanor, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, before COVID, I was traveling once or twice a week, and I agree, it's not as glamorous as it sounds. The occasional nice hotel that you get every 4 to 6 months doesn't offset the usual grind that you're going through. Now that it's post-COVID, I'm not traveling quite as much. I enjoy that a lot. So a lot of it's in my role is visiting customers and going out and doing kind of the architecture, solutioneering, and sort of a BD role inside of engineering. And it was fun, but it definitely can get old really quick.
Yeah, you guys are devastating me. It sounds like social media is lying to us. That can't be.
So one downside of traveling also is your spouse, especially if there's little kids in your family. It's very hard to do. So, but definitely, I traveled in my last job about once a year at least to a conference, talking about NAND flash memory. That was always fun. Got to go to the company headquarters, right, and meet some of those other teammates, to see face to face. So it's definitely, hopefully with COVID settling down now, we can start doing more and more travel again. It's hard, it's not easy, but there's definitely benefits of being face to face.
And
I've never actually travel for any of my previous jobs until this one. So this year I actually went on a couple of different trips in Colorado. I went to one in Massachusetts. My team actually distributed throughout the US. So I have some on the West Coast, East Coast, and in the middle. So for us, it's really nice to have like a couple times a year at least to meet with everyone face to face, either other leaders or other team members. But other than those few moments, we don't have to really travel, but we are allowed to remotely work. So you could be at a beach if you like in Hawaii for a week and travel if you want to work from there. So there's some perks.
So it sounds like I'm hearing, for the most part, when we go on these trips, it's pretty work heavy most of the time we're there, and it's there to get stuff done. All right, Leah, next question.
There's quite a few, very specific questions. So I do want to remind everyone that there is a mixer afterward. If you would like to speak individually to each one of these panelists, they can see them in the mixer to ask. I've been sticking to sort of the general questions. It continues to come up about whether you look at grade point average and whether students are honors. Does anybody want to address that?
Oh, I'd love to hear this. So how much does a GPA and getting that perfect 4.0 and being in these programs, how much does that affect things when you're looking at a potential new hire or intern?
I can look at it from the perspective as an applicant. I can't speak as what a hiring manager would care, but I've never had anyone ever care about my GPA. Ever. Never. I've never had someone commented on it. I've never had anyone care. As long as I'm willing to learn, and I have a resume that proves I can learn, that's been my thing. I don't think I've ever had a discussion on my GPA during an interview.
I looked at your GPA, Catherine.
My undergraduate GPA was 3.62 and my graduate GPA was 3.78.
Other thoughts on the GPA question?
So I did look at Catherine's GPA, and I think hers was probably one of the lower ones that we looked at. So again, it's not the only element. I think what got Catherine in the door was that she had a recommendation from somebody that we were already working with, something like that. So GPA is definitely important. It will help you get into the stack that gets looked at, but definitely there's other things that will help you get that first interview, such as who you know and things like that. So that goes back to the point of you need to be involved. You need to meet people in different disciplines and talk to your professors and get in touch with them.
Brian, Eleanor, Paul, how do you see this working in your field?
Yeah, it's similar to Chris. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say real quick. For me, as I've hired multiple engineers, the GPA is helpful, but it's only like one of the aspects that we take into account when we hire someone. It's not the full 100% reason why you would get hired. I know that that's true for when I hire someone, but it can depend on the company itself too.
And
I'll mixture of stuff.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off that. I think I agree, and that, I guess I was agreeing with Chris as well that the GPA really helps get you in that stack, because if it is very low, then we're concerned, did you really, go and learn, get the background that you need to be successful? But I'll take a lower GPA that shows that passion, what Catherine was talking about, and willingness to learn and curiosity over a 4.0 that displays none of those attributes. And another thing we do is we talk with all my hiring manager and the different teammates that interview and say, you want to work with this person. And it doesn't matter if they look great on paper and technically look sound. If the answer is no, then chances are we'll pass, because again, everything's in a team environment. That's more important than GPA.
And Paul, anything to add on to that?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. A really great GPA is not going to guarantee you a job, but a really crappy one can prevent you from ever getting an interview. It's an easy way for employers to prioritize. It's data they have, and this is a big problem, right? You got thousands of applicants. How do you decide with whom you're going to speak first? That's an easy way to make decisions. It may not be the best way, but I'm sure a lot of employers rely upon it.
All right, thank you all. Leah, we might have time for one more question before we wrap this up. Is there anything standing out in the Q&A queue?
There were a couple of asking how each of the panelists keep up with technology and the amount of changes that happen in their field as things continue to progress. So how do you keep up?
All right. Anybody have any specific thoughts on this?
I do a ton of reading, lots of reading. My role involves stuff that's maybe not as engineering related as it used to. A lot of Harvard Business Review stuff, a lot of Wall Street Journal stuff. But I set aside time. It's usually on Fridays if I can, or maybe on my weekends. I just do a ton of reading.
Keeping yourself well-rounded. I like that. Anybody else have anything to add on to that?
I agree. A lot of reading. I read a lot of white papers, just to learn what other people are doing. And as science goals become more crazy and wild, they drive more crazy and wild electrical goals. And so we're constantly finding new solutions to achieve bigger goals, which means having to keep up on technology. And a lot of that might also mean you set aside, one day a week to just sit and fiddle around with technology. So
you never know where that next great idea is going to come from. Anybody else want to jump in on this one?
Sure, I'll jump in. Like I mentioned before, that I would assume almost in all of our industries, there's like some sort of trade conference or something like that. So definitely I've been to the one for the NAND flash memory. That's what my field is. It's definitely just interesting to see what everybody else is doing out there, what they're showing off, what they're proud of. It's a good time to meet other people in the industry, right? It's also a good time to network because you never know when you need to hire somebody or when you need to find a new job. So those type of things are always good to do at some of those type of conferences.
Right. Okay, so it looks like we got about 3 minutes left. We should probably start wrapping up. So I'm just going to go around the panel and ask, do you have any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to give our CSE and EE students? Let's start with Brian.
So again, I go back to don't focus on so many of those other details that I think people concern themselves with in school. Just be curious and be passionate. I think that will, and I'm echoing a lot of what the other panelists have said, and I think that will take you further than anything. And I like Eleanor's advice too. Just be yourself and let yourself show. We're not looking to hire robots; we're hiring people. So I think that's important.
All right, Catherine, your final thoughts, words of wisdom?
Ditto. Yeah, I was really fortunate to have a lot of internships in college that I got in a lot of different ways, and all of it stemmed just from having fun and meeting people and just talking to even just my college friends. And they told me about opportunities. So it doesn't have to be professionals that can get you somewhere. It can be your freshman year roommate. You never know who's going to help you out. It all just stems from doing what you love.
Eleanor?
Other than networking with people that you mean, and just want to say, be curious, be proactive, and really just be yourself. It really does make a big difference, because when you're more yourself, you feel that you work better in your job, you do better, and you can go and get those opportunities that you may want or you may happen to stumble into. You do really well in your job. Someone from a different department like, hey, here is this job like 10 steps up. Do you want it? I've seen all the work you've done amazing, and it's going to be similar to what you do, but it's not going to be at a higher caliber. So that's for me.
Paul, what might you give them going out the door here?
I'm going to give the same advice I gave last year. I think Eleanor probably heard it. I like to quote Ashton Kutcher from the 2013 Teen Choice Awards. He said, "Opportunity looks a lot like hard work." He didn't start out as a superstar actor. He started out sweeping the floors in a breakfast cereal factory. Sometimes you're given tasks that aren't palatable. They may not be the funnest things, but if you just put your head down and get them done, it gets noticed. We can't always work on the most fun things all the time. Knuckle down, work hard, and you'll get recognized for that.
All right, and Chris, take us out with a bang. What's your
No
parting
pressure.
piece of advice? Yeah.
So I think that if your goal is to be, an engineer, either electrical engineer, computer systems engineer, then I think you should start acting like it. So do those things on your own time, right? Join clubs, do side projects, get involved with, Linux, build the kernel, those type of things like that. It's all good practice because then you have something to talk about in an interview. You have something to put on your resume. It's good practice to talk to others, work in teams, those type of things like that. So definitely get involved, act like an engineer, seek out opportunities where you can make a difference.
Right. And on that note, on behalf of the Fulton Schools of Engineering, I would really like to thank all the panelists for joining us today. You are all awesome. Great piece of advice here. We learned a lot of valuable information. Panelists, if you are joining the mixer, please navigate to the lobby and then your session. Students, please navigate to the lobby and then to the mixer part of the evening by selecting a session from the list of majors and names. All right. The recording of this will be available in your few days through your ASU 101 course. Thank you for joining us and have a nice rest of your evening.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you all. You're all amazing.
Thanks, Leah. I know
Yeah,
you did all the
thank you,
hard
Kelly.
behind the scenes work.